Hey everyone, Jason Weckerle here. Today in this video, I'm going to teach you guys what I like to use during the fall period for walleye fishing. I mainly fish from shore and I fish in a lot of shallower water, about 12 feet all the way down to a foot of water. And these baits will work from shore, they'll work from a boat. As long as you're not fishing any deeper than maybe 15 feet at the most, you'll catch some walleyes on all these baits. And I'm going to go over the gear, the line, every single lure, jig, everything you guys need to know to catch more walleyes. All right, first to start out with, I'm going to show you guys the type of rod I like to use for jigging for walleyes. The type of rod I prefer is a 6.5 foot to 7 foot spinning rod, medium light action. If you bump up to let's say like a 3/8 ounce jig or a 1/2 ounce or more, which casting from shore, I don't really do a lot of heavyweight jigging. Most of the jigs I like to use are 1/4, 1/8, 1/16 ounce even. I use a lot of 1/16 ounce, which a lot of walleye fishermen don't do. For whatever reason. I mean, it is hard to find a 16th ounce jig that has a long enough and strong enough hook to fit some of these 3, 4, 5 inch soft plastics. But I just go with like a Northland gumball jig or fireball jig, I believe. It's just a ball head. And right here, for example, you guys can see this is a Northland jig head, 1/16 ounce. It's got a little bit longer hook, so it goes farther back on the soft plastic tail. And the 1/16 ounce by Northland, as long as you got a long enough hook, a strong enough hook, you should be pretty good. When you have to downsize, fish slower, you have to sit there and really coax those fish to bite, a 16th ounce jig is perfect. Or if you're dealing with really shallow water, very little current, and you got to keep that bait riding right above the bottom, drop down to a 16th ounce, even in a river situation, because all these baits I'm showing you will work in rivers and lakes, by the way. So don't be fooled. The same colors, the same baits, lake, river, they'll work just fine. But when you drop down to a 16th ounce, it forces you to fish slower to maintain bottom contact, because you want that bait on the bottom or riding just inches within the bottom. And a lot of guys, like I said, do not fish light enough jigs. I mean, every time I go to a river, a lot of fishermen think if they see current, they need to just tie on the old bread and butter 1/4 ounce jig and pound the bottom basically. But you would be surprised how often you get snagged and how many fish you catch and how well you can actually feel the bottom if you just drop down to a 1/8 ounce or a 1/16 ounce. So make sure you're fishing the lightest weight jig that you can get away with, the lightest weight possible. Like this is a 1/4 ounce, that's a 1/8, and that's a 1/16, and that's what I mainly carry with me. I don't deal with a lot of rivers around here, like the Mississippi River, for instance, is really deep, really strong current. I would bump up to a 1/4 ounce, 3/8, a 1/2 ounce. I've seen guys even go up to 3/4 ounce out on the Mississippi. But when you're dealing with rivers, like here in Wisconsin, we got the Wolf River, the Fox River, the Rock River, Menominee, Peshtigo, all sorts of rivers, the St. Croix River, the Wisconsin River. A lot of these rivers have a lot of shallow water areas, and maybe you're even casting into a foot of water in some spots. Walleyes will come really shallow to feed, day or night, but especially at night. I do a lot of my fishing at night for walleyes, and I've learned a lot over the years about, you know, prime feeding periods, day, night, stuff like that. And I tend to notice that a lot of the plastics that I'm throwing, if I'm fishing out on a lake with crystal clear water, I tend to go with something a little thinner, maybe even smaller at times, like a 3 to 4 inch bait. But if you're dealing with really murky water, you want to throw a soft plastic tail that provides a lot of thump, like a lot of wiggle, thump, pushes out vibration that the fish can feel with their lateral line. A fish have a nerve going down the sides of their bodies called the lateral line, and that's how they pick up on food. They can find their prey in the dark, in murky water, and they can feel vibrations, they can hear sound. And if the water is really murky or you're fishing at night, a lot of times I like to go with like a 3.5 to 3.8 inch Kitech fat swing impact. These baits have a really fat body on them. They have a real large paddle tail. When that thing's wiggling in the current, when you're working that bait slowly back to shore or slowly back to the boat, that's pushing out a lot of vibration in the water, and those fish can pick up on it, feel it, snap down on it. And this is a 3.3 inch swing impact, or fat swing impact, made by Kitech. And this is a very effective lure spring and fall. In fact, all of these baits, whether I'm fishing in spring or fall, I'm pretty much throwing the same lures no matter what. And guys think that there's a huge difference. The only difference is between spring and fall. In spring, you tend to get a lot more flooding. You get a lot more murky conditions, which murky water, if you can't see through it, chances are the fish are going to have a hard time finding your lure. So fishing during the daytime is oftentimes better. And in the springtime, you're looking for the warmest water. Those fish, after winter time, they want to find the warm water. They want to feel comfortable. It drives up their metabolism. They start feeding heavier. But in the springtime, bait fish tend to be like they're just being born, basically. And when they're born, they're tiny, and you might only see 1 inch to 3 inch minnows in the springtime. That could be 4, 5, 6 inch chubs or sucker fish during the fall period, because they're already growing up by fall. So in the springtime, I start out with a little bit smaller bait, like a 3 inch, a 3.5. And if I'm not getting bit, I'll upsize to a 4, 4.5 inch bait. But other than that, I don't really go over 5 inches when it comes to walleyes. I mean, I've seen guys catch them on 6 inch soft plastics like jerk shad minnows, stuff like that. But I tend to feel you're missing a lot more bites when those fish bite down on the end of the tail and they don't get the hook in their mouth. So try to key yourself in on 3 to 4 inches when it comes to a lure. No more than 5 inches. Upsize if you're dealing with bigger fish, or if you want to keep smaller fish off your hook. Upsize if it's murkier. At nighttime, I'll go with even a bait that's like a 5 inch Rapala. That's very common. But when it comes to these soft plastics, you want a tail that's got like a paddle tail or a boot tail like that Kitech I just showed you. You can go with a curly tail grub, like these kaolin grubs, 3 to 4 inches long. I'll show you guys real quick what that looks like. This is a kaolin grub. This is a color called oyster shell. I do really good on this color, but it's your standard Mr. Twister style grub. And I tend to go with real natural colors a lot, like minnow patterns, like bait fish patterns. I mimic shiners. White is good. That oyster shell color, it's like a kind of like a flashy blue, silver color. And I do really good on that, on those type of colors, especially if I'm fishing crystal clear water out on the lakes, a black and silver, or anything that looks like a minnow, like you see right here. This color is called Arkansas Shiner. And another color I like using by Kitech is Pro Blue Red Fleck, it's called. This right here is Pro Blue Red Fleck. That's a really good color. I catch fish in stained rivers on these minnow colors and on white. I catch them in crystal clear water. But if I'm dealing with murky water or a river, I tend to feel you can get away with a lot of different colors, which is when I start pulling out the chartreuse green, the hot orange. Got chartreuse green right here. Got some hot orange. Here's a chartreuse orange core, it's called. And a lot of guys neglect purple, but purple is a super amazing walleye color. I even got that purple in this. But I try not to carry too many colors: purple, chartreuse green, orange, white, oyster shell, and anything that looks like a minnow or a shiner or an alewife or a sucker. I mean, or a perch. I mean, we catch a lot of fish on perch patterns, black and silver, stuff like that. And you got the Kalen grub you can go with. That's my favorite curly tail grub. Mr. Twister. Mr. Twister was the first company to come out with the curly tail grub back in the early 70s. But these Kalen grubs, they got a nice fat tail on them. And they put out a lot of thump, vibration. They swim really good at super slow speeds. And I just like using like a 2000 size reel with a 6.5 to 7 foot spinning rod, medium light action, no more than medium for jigging. And a lot of times you just take that jig, you throw it out there, you let it sink to the bottom. And if you're dealing with a river, you don't even have to turn the reel handle barely. You can just sit there, pause it sometimes, and that current will push on that soft plastic tail, getting it wiggling right in place. And sometimes the slower you can move that bait, the better. And that's why these Kitechs are so good. They have really flimsy tails. So much action at slow speeds. Kitech is by far the greatest swim bait when it comes to fishing slow. They might rip really easy, but you can fish them dead slow. Catch tons of fish on them. I absolutely love them. But they do tend to rip a lot. That's the frustration of using Kitechs. But if you're catching fish and you can't get bit on anything else, that's the sacrifice you got to make. But I use 10-pound test Power Pro braid. You can use whatever braid you want. I prefer Power Pro or like Suffix 832, but mainly Power Pro. 1500 to 2000 size reel, 2500 size at most, 6.5 to 7 foot spinning rod. This is a St. Croix, medium light action. But when it comes to a lot of these soft plastics, and a lot of guys such as myself and buddies of mine and other walleye fishermen tend to love these Beef Fish and Tackle Authentics Moxies. This is another version of kind of a curly tail grub, but this one's got a thinner tail. Kind of it looks like a cross between a swim bait and kind of a ringworm or curly tail grub. And speaking of ringworms, before I forget to show you guys, this is a ringworm. Really thin, little tiny tail on the end. These work really good for walleyes also. I just have a whole box just full of baits right here. And these Moxies are absolutely dynamite. And to be honest with you, it's been a few years since I've actually had to use a curly tail grub. I mean, you don't have to use it, but it's been a few years since I've used them because these moxies and the swim baits, I don't normally have to work past throwing the tackle box at them, basically, at the fish when it comes to those two baits, because I catch that many fish on them and they're that good. But kaolin grubs, high-tech swim baits, moxies. Another bait by Authentics Beef Fishing Tackle is the Pulsar. That's another swim bait. And here, let me see if I can find, I'll just open this one. Sorry, kind of scatterbrained right now, but it's got the same body as the Moxie. That fat stomach on it, flat-sided, but it's a paddle tail swim bait. These pulsars swim at really slow speeds also, where you can still get them to wiggle. Really good bait as well. So pick yourselves up some Kitex and some pulsars, some moxies, and some kaolin grubs. If you guys like this video, subscribe to my page, hit that like button, turn on the notification bell. It's free to subscribe. It helps my page grow. It gives me a reason to keep bringing content, to keep making content and bringing it to you viewers. I appreciate every one of you who has hit that subscribe button already. Even if you don't, I hope you enjoyed the video. But hit the subscribe button and you'll get my latest content. Take care. Good luck walleye fishing.